Yo guys, what is up? It's Andy here, back at you with another video, and today is the third of a 4-part series. Oops, only supposed to say there's 3 parts, but there may be a fourth coming. It's basically Andy's soil reviews that have been going down. We took a bunch of soil samples, we sent it off to a lab in the States, Logan Labs. We literally packed soil in the thing, got DHL to pick it up, sent it all the way overseas. It's a very expensive endeavor, but so far it's been super interesting, and you guys are loving the content, so we love bringing it to you, so great. This one is Anti-Fragile. It's a new soil from Freedom Farms. It is interesting, and we have an expert, Mike from Kayak Farms, who's going to be going through the whole explanation of it. It's way above my depth of knowledge, though I've learned a lot along the road with Mike. This is some serious level stuff, so if you guys are interested in that, hope you guys check it out and enjoy it, and leave some comments, and enjoy the video. Welcome, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us today and giving us the third round of analyses on the soil samples that we sent through. And today, thanks for obviously coming in and helping us analyze the anti-fragile soil. How did you find it? Walk us through and let us know what you discovered.
Oh, hey, hello everyone. Okay, cool. Yeah, so anti-fragile, very cool new soil. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, let's go straight into it and see what we see. I'll give you my opinion a bit later. But yeah, so let's start with the saturated paste. So again, just for introduction for whoever hasn't seen the previous video, those are sample collected from a random bag of anti-fragile for Freedom Farm. We send it to the US to a lab to test, and it comes up with 2 tests, as you can see. The one on the left, the blue one, called the standard test, gives you a total amount of nutrients that is in the soil, whether it's available or not to the plants. So think of it as your bank account. And then the test on the right, the red one, the saturated paste, is going to give you a snapshot in time of what nutrients are available right now to the plant. So think of it as your wallet, if you want. So those 2 tests will tell you how much you have in the soil, what is available, and from that you can see your reserves, etc. But obviously the most interesting test being the saturated paste, because it tells you really what's available right now, because your plant is in the soil right now. Okay, so let's see the pH. So water use DI, I've never covered that, but this is distilled water, and basically they just run distilled water through the soil and then measure the nutrient content in the water to see how many of those nutrients fall into solution. So
just so there's
the soil solution.
Yeah, so there's no other nutrients, there's no other minerals or anything in the water that could change the results.
Yes, and also the pH is neutral, so it doesn't have a strong extracting capability. It will just take what's available. Whereas if you were to look at the standard test, they use a very strong acid, so it dissolves everything. So that's also a difference, which is why you see a lot smaller results on this side, because it takes a lot less. It's what's available. Awesome. And technically, if you were to plants have their root exudated and everything, they've got a slightly strong, more acidic pH, or they've got stronger extracting capability. So technically, the plant can access a little bit more than that, but it's somewhere in between. But yeah, anyway, Let's start. pH of 8. Okay, pH of 8 is not ideal. It's quite high. It's better to have a high pH than a low pH. The low pH is going to cause a lot more issue than a high pH, but around over 7.5, it starts to get a little high. Yeah, so be very careful. I wouldn't add any kind of liming agent, because that will increase your pH. It's going to cause more issues. So yeah, this is something to look at, definitely. In terms of the soluble salt is basically a number that shows you the total nutrient levels in the soil so you can just see how strong your soil is, how loaded it is. At the moment, 785. It's decent. I would call that more on the lighter side compared to the Freedom Farm Classic, which we looked at, which had 1,900, I believe. So this one is not as nutritionally dense, but it's still a good number. 785. It's yeah, around 1,000. 1,000 is good, but you can go quite a lot higher. The 1,000 just creates the least osmotic stress. The plant just grows very fast like this, but you're gonna have to supplement a little bit. So yeah, 785 good. You're gonna have to give a little something over time because it's gonna deplete. Yeah, it's gonna deplete a bit faster than the 1,900 of the classic. Chloride and bicarbonate. So those two will create a lot of osmotic stress in the plant. They'll interfere with cation uptake. So those you wanna look at. And in most soil, as we've seen on the previous test, they're always rather high. The chloride, especially, it's very often sitting around the 250 to 300, unfortunately. But again, watering in the soil can lower that very quickly because it's highly mobile. Same as the bicarbonate, they're a little bit on the higher end on this side. So, you know, a drench of the soil, a bit of leaching would probably be a good idea to just get those numbers down to prevent any issues. But remember, as soon as you drench, you leach the soil, you're losing some nutrients.
All of the, not just those. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to think of it and maybe add a little something. But yeah, definitely those numbers need to be looked at as well as the pH and try and bring them down. Nothing horrible though, it's not gonna kill your plants or anything like this. Sulfur 80, that's great. That's a really good number to see. Like we said several times, cannabis relies on sulfur a lot to create terpenes, flavors, etc. So that's the number you want to see there. You can look on the standard TR reserves, 508. I mean, there's plenty of reserves and it falls into solution quite well. So 100% on that.
Nice.
Phosphorus, looking at the soil solution, 275, that's good. That's a good number. Between 2 and 4, it's nice to be there. And then if we look at our reserves though, 2,922. So
off the chart.
It's high. They've really tried to load that soil with phosphorus. Obviously, cannabis plants are phosphorus hungry plants, but this is a lot. This is really a lot. It's not really going to cause issues in your soil, but to give you, for example, if you were to use mycorrhizae in there, it would be pointless. There's way too much phosphorus in there for mycorrhizae to really need to work there. You know, so yeah, it's high. You know, it doesn't need to be that high. It can be lowered. And also something we don't see, phosphorus often is amended with soft rock phosphate, and soft rock phosphate can be high in some heavy metals. So depending the amount of soft rock phosphate in the soil, it can affect the heavy metal levels. But obviously, this is only affect you know, GMP certified growers and everything. Home growers don't really need to worry.
Not too worried about it.
No.
Cool.
Unless you're very, very health conscious and really want to go into the nitty gritty of the thing. Okay, cool. The cation, very, very important part of the soil. And yeah, calcium. Again, it follows the same trend as most soil on the market. It's nothing unique to Freedom Farm. Like everybody has the same hurdle to go over, and those are the ones: the calcium, magnesium, potassium balance, and sufficiency. So at the moment, the calcium is very low. I want to see that 3 times, at least 3 times that number. Yeah, and especially considering now that you see the balance is
off,
going the wrong way. You should have more. Well, if we look at the percentage, you see the percentage, we should have way more calcium, a little less magnesium, a little less potassium, and a lot less sodium. Whereas in this case, it's the other way around. So if you were to keep your potassium and your magnesium at the same level, you would have to add a lot a lot more calcium. Yeah, to keep that balance correct. So yeah, calcium needs to be increased a lot, especially if you're going to be in veg soil. That's going to be crucial. You're not going to set your plant up for good flower if you don't have any calcium in veg.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. Magnesium is really good. That's usually something that we see that is too high in most soil. But 30, that's a very good number. So well done on the magnesium for Freedom Farm. And you see good reserves as well. So 100%. Potassium, I think they followed the same idea as the phosphorus. They've crammed a lot of potassium in there to try and make it as heavy as possible, which is good. It's a high number. It's a little elevated for me. I'd like to see it a little lower than that, but I mean, for cannabis, they're potassium hungry plants. They take up a lot of potassium in flowering. So it's good to have enough, but this is almost a little too much. I would, yeah. Or at least the calcium needs to be raised to make this.
To balance it out.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and then the balance, we've kind of covered it. You know, the calcium is very, very low. This needs to be around the 50, 60%. The magnesium is good. Potassium is too high. It's just too high. So your plants are gonna struggle a little bit. You know, you're not gonna see massive deficiencies or anything, but your plants are gonna grow slower and they're gonna have a hard time reaching like full potential than if this was balanced. See, there's no horrible red flags. You know, there's nothing that's gonna kill your plants or anything. Yeah, okay, boom, what else? Okay, before we go into the trace elements, let's just jump onto the nitrogen, nitrate and ammonium. So that's the two forms of nitrogen that the plants will uptake. The ammonium over time gets converted to nitrate, which is the primary form of nitrogen that the cannabis plant will take up. So the 32, so what we really want to see and look at is the nitrate. 32, it's extremely low. That's just too low for cannabis plants. This is what you want to see when you finish flowering, to give you a comparison. So it's very low. And then the ammonium normally I want to see it at 1, or between 1 and 2 max, but 1, closer to 1 is the best, because what that indicates is that all the nitrogen has been cycled and turned into nitrate. If your ammonium is more than 1, it means that you still have nitrogen that is being converted into nitrate, or ammonium that is being converted into nitrate, and meaning that this 32 number is not the final number. If you let the soil sit for a month, this is going to go down and this is going to go up. Now 24, that's extremely high. 24 is very high, and usually my thinking is, obviously they have added nitrogen in the soil. There's no way they forgot about it. So the 32 is not their fault where they didn't add enough, in my opinion. My thinking is that they've added enough, but during the cooking process or the bagging process or something, the soil has gone anaerobic and nitrate has been turned back into ammonium.
Yeah.
Which is often what we see when ammonium is very high like this. It's often an indication that the soil has gone or is anaerobic. So it could be that the nitrogen was really good at some point,
as it left, or yeah,
of mixing the soil or storage or something has gone possibly wrong, and the nitrogen, the nitrate, has been converted back into ammonium. It's not a horrible issue. I mean, it's going to go back eventually if your soil is aerobic enough, etc. But yeah, it shows that there is an issue somewhere. There's something that needs to be looked at. But yeah, if you're really worried about those numbers, what you can do is just take a bag, empty it in a pot, and let it sit for a few weeks, and that's gonna bring it back to normal. Yes, and then finally, the trace elements. The trace elements. Let's start with let's actually start with the saturated base. Boron, iron, manganese. They are okay. Boron is okay, a little low, but nothing horrible. Manganese a little low, nothing horrible. They're good. I've said that on the last time, and I'll probably repeat it during every video. But trace elements is a very tricky thing to amend, especially from a soil producer perspective, because we're talking about minute amounts. And if there's one mistake made during the mixing process or anything, it could have devastating effects. Whereas having them at those level, it's not deficient, it's not bad, it's just a little low. Like I'd like to see them a little higher, but is it worth messing with those and taking the chance of, having an issue?
Overdoing
same when same if you want to amend your soil and raise those numbers, be careful, because those numbers can get quite high very quickly. And it's not like chloride, which is very mobile and you can flush it out. Once it's there, it's there. You won't flush it out. You can throw away your soil pretty much.
Sure.
So be careful. But yeah, the numbers are good. If I were to focus on one, probably manganese. Manganese, cannabis plants and flowering, I don't know, they just eat a lot of manganese. It's crazy. And then looking at copper and zinc, copper is a little low. Yeah, that could do with a little boost, but nothing crazy. And zinc, as usual, I've never seen it deficient yet. It's always good, and it's always on point for some reason. And then aluminium is within range. You don't want to see it over 1 on the saturated pace, and technically, as long as your pH is in range, you'll be fine with aluminium. The only risk is when your pH goes down and it makes aluminium more available to the plant, easily applicable by the plant. But I've never seen a strong issue with that. So yeah, overall, I think it needs work. It needs work, but it's got a good base, and the ideas behind it are good. It's a proper heavy soil that will last longer. But as you can see, the soluble soils don't really reflect that. I mean, it's not that heavy of a soil, and you can see the total exchange capacity is 20. Around 10-15 is a light soil, around 20-25 is a heavy soil. So it's on the lower spectrum of a heavy soil. So they can cram a lot more nutrients in there. But they could also remove a couple, lower the amount of a few, like potassium and phosphorus, and then figure out what's happening with the nitrogen there. But other than that, cool soil, nice idea. I think it's got good potential in the future if they work on it, keep working on it, keep improving, and
I think it'll take a little bit of time. I mean, they have just released it. I'm not too sure where it's, I think they're trying to get like an all-in-one, one bag of soil to last the whole grow. Like, I think they're going for like a very B2C sort of style thing. Whether they needed to go for like a full release so soon, maybe. We'll see. But maybe there's also we have no anecdotal evidence. I mean, Classic Craft and August Oil Lux, not everything was perfect on the results, but geez, we've seen good results come out of them. And pretty much, as you said, there's nothing here that's really a plant killer. And you kind of can read the plant and see where you need to amend and where you need to add and where you need to not add. But with a couple orange flags, not red flags.
No, not red flags. And looking at it, I'm just trying to think, how can you best use it? I mean, looking at their Freedom Farm Classic that we tested, it was quite a heavy soil. I mean, I was surprised. It was very heavy, much heavier than this. I can't remember the results off the top of my head, but if it was a more veg-orientated soil, you could use anti-fragile with this high phosphorus and this high potassium. You could potentially use it as a top dress or as a transplant medium, potentially for flowering plants coming off of plastic, if you wanted, because obviously the potassium and the phosphorus are the two elements you're going to want to push a little bit more in flower. So they could work hand in hand.
Like a booster almost.
So there's.
And then also like I suppose a small disclaimer is that, like this is one cup out of one bag out of probably tons that is getting made every month. So there could be other variances, but you have our results, and you guys at home can obviously use these results and do with them what you want. And of course, Mike, thank you so much for coming on and giving everyone the info. Definitely couldn't have explained it like you did in not in 100 years. Guys, if you ever need any analysis of soil, you can obviously check out Mike's links below. And we'll see you hopefully for some more samples and analysis results in the future.
100%. I'm keen. Got a few ideas.
Awesome. Have a great day. Thanks, Mike.